So it sounds like you have a really strong value system around service. Tell me more about, I mean, obviously you're doing it through your music, but it sounds like you also have more going on related to supporting Pato and his ministries.
Yeah, because he's always talking about going the second mile. So it's like, if you're going to help somebody, you got to see them through it to the end as well, too. You know, just not like, oh, I helped you and then just kind of leave them alone. But you also want to sit there and like, you want to help them grow. You want to help them grow within their family. You want to help them grow in their job. You want to help them grow in their life. You want to help them grow as a person. You want to help them grow spiritually. But you just don't want to be like, oh, I just helped you and that's it. Because, you know, as a brother or sister, as a family member, you always want to try to help each other to sit there and rise even further. Because we all have that potential, you know, for greatness.
When did you realize that you and Pato were aligned on this?
This is very odd because I met him 20 years ago, and I thought he was fascinating back then because, you know, when I saw the show, I was just like anybody else who had saw the show. I was like, this is a very, very powerful show, and the things that he's saying to the people really touched me. You know, it's like, I've never seen that many artists who are sitting there going to do a show. It's usually just to be entertained. So now I've gone from being entertained to sit there and got me thinking. So I was like, I have to meet who this guy is. I was like, I got to talk to him. And he was one of those kinds of artists who's like, okay, you know, he's always open to meeting people after the show. And we started talking, and we were talking for hours. And there he was talking about science and politics and religion and philosophy and spirituality. I was like, wow, how did he get on such a deep level with all this thinking and stuff? Had me thinking for years and years. Then I ran into him years later, and I was like, I need to talk to him some more because, you know, who else are you going to meet that's going to have like all these ideas and like along kind of like the same kind of lines that I'm thinking as well too. But this at this time and point, it's only just as someone I admire and respect, you know, because I love a sexy mind, you know, not a sexual person. And then, so years later, when I finally did start working with them, it's like, okay, I can ask him all the questions that I want to ask him. We can have these discussions, you know, about the future, about the world, about, you know, who we are in the society and stuff, and just continue on with ongoing conversations on and on, you know.
So what point did it turn romantic?
Oh, probably I was an employee with him, you know, so I've met him a couple times throughout the 20 years or so. But after I started working with him, after about a year, after I started working with him, that's when it turned. Before, it was still just an employee. He was just like my brother and my friend and my boss, you know. And I wasn't even looking at it like that, but I don't know what happened, but it just changed. It just changed from like, you know, us being friends and us being as respected. And then I also wasn't into the ministry. I wasn't into the spirituality that he was on. He introduced those things to me, not by saying, hey, check this out. You know, you got to read this Urantia book. You got to like follow in whatever. But I became curious because I was watching him. I was watching him do service, do counseling, minister to people. And it wasn't my thing at all. I wasn't interested. But watching him doing it, I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. And it's interesting and fascinating watching how the people were following him and how much they loved him and how much they respected him. And I was like, well, what is it that is, you know, I can understand on a personal level, but what is it for them? Because they're getting that same kind of personal level of love and affection, why they admire him so much. And I was like, wow, this is very, very different. And I started to see him in a more different light as well, too.
And he started recognizing you in a different light, too.
Yeah, because I was the one in the band. I was the one, you know, who shut the bar down, you know, and like had the parties all night and other stuff. I was a different kind of person. And he was just not telling me to be different, but just being around him made me want to be different. And it started to change that for myself. It's like I realized that I wanted more for my life as well, too. I wanted to mean more in my life than just, you know, the rock and rollers, you know, someone who was just like going out there and doing a gig and just doing a job. And I was like, you know, that the importance and the impact of being a musician, you know, could have on other people. It's like, okay, maybe I should reshift my thinking and my work a little bit more. And I wanted to be more supportive. It was really that I wanted to support him in what he was doing because he was overworking himself all the time, you know, workaholic, service work. And I was like, well, you know, maybe if I helped him out a bit, it might not be so hard for him. And then I just kind of fell into it after that. I was like, okay, well, all right, let me go help out. And then after a while, I was like, well, this isn't so bad after all.
So you felt some benefits as a result of the efforts that you put in as well?
Yes, definitely. Because everywhere that we go and everywhere that we travel, I realize that the fans, they don't love him just for the music and for what he's saying, but also how he treats them as a person. And that kind of friendship is like, I've gained more friends and family through working with him, just from being a part of his circle, just being a part of his camp. And even the rest of the musicians could say the same thing, because all the fans, they know the musicians' names. I've been in the business for 20 years, and it's like you work with hundreds of artists. Nobody ever knows who the guitar player is or the drummer, but everybody knows everybody in the band by name, because he's always talking about them. They're always coming up to us, and it's just much more open. It's not us and them, you know, musician and then artist. So it's all of us together equally.
It's interesting because relating to your relationship, because this is really fascinating for me, it seems like the foundation of it is more than just a romantic attraction. It sounds like you guys share a value system, and that you started to align to what he believed in. How has that evolved? I mean, you guys decided to get married, and
yeah. Well, the thing is that from when I first met him, I realized that we already had a lot in common already. The spirituality aspect was a little bit different, because I was kind of running from religion, and he was trying to find and seek answers. And so it's like we're going in two different directions, but yet when he found the Urantia book and then he introduced it to me, we were coming right back to the middle, because I was like, this is exactly what I've been saying all along, but I wasn't looking for it. But now here it is. It just kind of like landed in my lap. I was like, this is the kind of stuff that I always felt and I've always known, and now it's just been reaffirmed for me. Once that became reaffirmed for me, that we basically both have the same goals, especially in our spiritual life. And when we did take our vows, when we got married, it was like, I said, I'm going to the mansion worlds with you. It's not till death do us part. It's like, our plan is to go on for eternity, because they sit there and say you actually have a choice. You guys can split after you die and, you know, find new partners or do something. But with us, it's like we can also wait for each other and then continue our journey on together as spiritual partners as well. Because I was like, I want to see the universe. I want to see the afterlife with you, because he was the one that taught me about it and showed me.